Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video the car is finished, so in this video I'll be showing the spare wheel well install, a few pieces in the boot, making the spoiler, doing the passenger side inner door skin, a small little repair on the outer, welding up the mirror holes, and general little tidy up bits like replicating the grill tab for the R100 grill. That's a genuine guard, this is a 1200 guard, making the front lip, and just doing all the little general small things like replicating a horn bracket and battery tray repairs and stuff, just to finish the car off because the car is done now. So let's get to it. Been supplied with a factory spare wheel well. There's a bit of damage on it, like a little tear around these areas and some dents and stuff to take care of, so I'll sort them out before it goes in, because that will be a fucking nightmare to get access to those, and then unpick what's left of the old one and plonk this one in. I was using the hammer and dolly to get these dents out here, and I was like, what is this? It looks like a weld, and I'm like, okay, so there's a rised up dent on this side, and I'm hammering and dolling it. It's got a weird sound, and I think they've just bogged the dent. Yeah, they have. Righto, that'll fix it. It will take longer to mix up the cake mix and smear it in there and sand it than it would just to grab a dolly, give it like a few hits and it's gone. I don't understand this shit. That honestly took 30 seconds to remove, so I really don't understand the logic of mixing up bog to smear it into a dent on the underside as well, and then sand it and getting dust and shit all over your head for no reason at all. Like, crazy. My only logic is maybe when they had the cake mix out fixing this split, they just decided to wipe it into this dent while they're there. They had excess, who knows. But this piece is suspiciously smooth, and I can see all the 80 grit whizzer marks around it, so see what's under there. Alright, so this little patch in this, and I welded the split up on that side, and we've discovered it's had the Western Sydney repairs on it. So as we can see, all these big creases that are coming up into it on this side are bogged smooth on this side. So it's definitely had the old Mazda from Sydney treatment. So after knocking a few of these hires down, I can imagine it's busted open like a pinata on this side. Oh yeah. So yeah, just no need to put bog in there, boys. Just tap it down. 2 seconds. The reason for scraping all this bog and junk off is there's rust under there. So they've just bogged over the top of rust. There's moisture trapped under there that's going to sweat and continue to rust. So best to get it all off now. And two, I don't really want to give the car to the panel shop and then they've got to scrape all this shit off upside down. They will curse me, and I'll be like, why didn't you get the dents out when you had the spare wheel well out? Like, that's just lazy if you don't do this now. The majority is off the top, and I've got all the sticker flex off the bottom lip. That's all mangled, so I've got to just dress all that back up to flat, and yeah, start addressing all this. There is some rust holes in there as well. Obviously it's bogged on both sides, so gonna rip all that junk out of there. Found a few little rust patches to do here and there. Right, so after I burnt all the bog off, I'm confident the rest is just paint, so just paint strip the rest of it off. Yes, I know the plastic trick of you put it on there and you wrap it in the plastic, but I don't really care about the floor, so just do it on the ground. And there we go, it uncovered why there was so much bog in every layer. It's pretty pitted everywhere, so they thought that they would just do the right thing of just smear some cake mix over everything and that fixes all the problems. But it doesn't, it just traps the moisture in there for the next bloke, makes his life harder. So gave the outside a few little shrinks on some heavier dents, just pull them up a bit before we put it in the punishing hammer, but should come up alright. Also explains why they siliconed it in, is they knew it was a time bomb and they didn't want to weld it into the car because they knew they'd done the bodgy on it. So, little things to look out for like that, but it's uncovered a few little more holes to weld up here and there, but not too bad. I've done a few little ones around the outside already, so what's a few more? Just giving it a wire wheel in any like light pitted areas because you don't want to trap that rust in there when you start planishing it. But if they were to just get this blasted whenever they did it and epoxied it would have stopped the rust, because it would have blasted it, so you would have neutralized the rust, and then epoxied it, so you would have sealed it. And then they could have put the cake mix everywhere and made it nice, and they wouldn't have even had any issue. It would have been actually sweet. But because they put the cake mix over the rust first, they've just made the problem worse. So pretty stupid. Alright, so just ran that through the hammer now and just spun it around in a circle, gradually changing where I was relative to where the dents were, and just did a few laps. And that's it. It would have took me longer to set the camera up than it would have to run it through this. So I've just done it without filming it, and that's the same radius there. That's using a combination of the strip wheel and the wire wheel just to clean this surface so it can be prepped and primed. Tigged up those rust holes and various other holes that are in there. So I'll do the same to the boot floor itself. I've removed the old piece. I'll prep this area and prime this, and then we can start sitting it in. So the top of the boot floor supports that go in here. They just get migged on the top there and along throughout. So this, so it is factory. After having a look at the bottom of the guard there, I've got it to play dice without even taking it off. It's all the energy is trapped here and it's forcing the guard out. So if you push the guard back in, it lowers the bottom again. So instead of redoing that lip there, I'm just going to take some material out of the lip here where it's trying to fight itself. And while the guard's off, I've got to weld this hole up here for the mirror, as well as the door mirror holes. One little difference I noticed there where I was about to weld the mirror hole up, this is not an R100 guard, because R100 has a tab for the grill. So I've got to weld these two holes up here, get rid of this, and replicate this little tab here for the grill. So this is the original guard to the car, and they've replaced this one when it's had a crash. These little things that you discover along the way. Right, so just 3 little infill pieces in there, TIG them in. Right, so weld it up, and you want no daylight through there, so you just hammer and dolly it until it comes good. Okay, so the bracket has been recreated. I'm going to transfer the door internals from the previous door, and you can see just why we're not using it. It is so twisted and mangled from the crash damage, being the original door, and they've just pulled it around that, yeah, we'll just start with a fresh one. Shame too, because it's very rusty, but what do you do? It's a mess everywhere. It's got high spots everywhere from the hinges pulling into it, and it's just not worth dicking around with. Alrighty, Thursday morning, back into it, and door internals are changed over into this door, so I've got it latching, and they're going to recreate the outer skin and the inner skin, same as the other side. So strangely enough, the pitting is actually on the outside. So I'm thinking maybe this door was sitting outside in the weather and was sitting in water, because the pitting's not on the bottom at all. So might not have to do a whole outer, but we'll see. I'll unpick this lower lip and have a geezer what it looks like on the inside. But it'd be really nice to not do a whole outer, save a whole day there. Now it's a tedious task to remove the skin if you want to refit it and not damage it. So I pretty much use a variety of tools, of like de-skinning tools, whatever you can get under there, depending on the access you have. Some things work better than others, but most of the times you can get under there with like a little piece like this and just keep prying the edge up very slowly, try not to crease it, and then you can gradually bump it over, and then you can use like seam pliers just to help pull it around without bending either this face or the other face. Try not to dig in, more clamp right on the edge. But it's a tedious task to unpick if you want to refit it, as opposed to just buzzing the edge off and the whole skin falls off. So yeah, we might be good here. The outer itself is in pretty good shape, so I think it's just the inner. So I'll unpick the inner in the same spot, probably up along through here where I can get access to it for the join, and see what it looks like, see what the outer looks like from the inside once the slayer's off. See, so the majority of the rot was on the inside skin, and the outer door skin It's pretty clean, so I'm not going to bother changing the outer. There's no need to. Just going to neutralize this, any little pitting that's on there, but it's fine. It's not got through on both sides or anything like that. It's just a little bit of pitting from the water being trapped in here. So that saves a whole day there making an outer skin and fitting it. There's no need to touch that, just leave it alone, do the inner. So same as last time, cookie cutter, made that step up. For this, I got to trim that section out, and that's pretty much it. Just prep and prime both surfaces and we're ready to TIG it along. Alright, so ready to TIG the center together. Alright, so bottom of the door is all welded up. So I'm going to prime it all and then fold these slips back over. I'm just going to give that a bit to dry, so I've got to weld up a little slit in the tunnel. And just this little tear in the driver's door. Sort that out while I just welded up the slit in the tunnel. Alright, so I can throw this back on now. So tunnel tear is sorted, that's welded up, and the mirror holes welded up. So a few things in the bay, just got to get rid of these coil holes, and there's two original ones there, so they'll stay, but get rid of those. There's a weld here that's broken off. There's a horn tab here that's got to exist, so I've got to remake that. I've got to put this little tab back on, so unpick it from the old rail and then put it on this side. Luckily we got a spare. And I think, yeah, cut this junk off. So someone's welded a secondary rad support piece on, so we'll piss that off. I think that's all for the bay. So I'm going to use this pretty beat up boot lid to do a rear spoiler that he wants. Very similar to the one on my coupe, so we'll be using this one as sort of a reference base. So it'll be something similar to this. Wrap right down the quarter, come up the top of the boot lid, maybe not as steep, we might roll it back a touch. But yeah, this is the start of the spoiler. We're going to go with something similar to this. Just changed it for the bottom of the boot profile. So it'll sit something like this and wrap down the spoiler. So I've got a piece already cut. So I'll run that through the slip rollers, add a radius to the very center of it, and then I can shape the arc wherever it needs once I sit it on the boot lid. Okay, so radius added with the slip rollers, and now we can see the sides need to be pulled down. So I've got to stretch the sides down to match the curve of the boot lid. In my mind I can do this two ways. I can knock the center of the radius up to let it wrap around itself, or I can stretch the sides down. It's like a choose your poison method, whatever you reckon will work best. The method I'm going to try here is to stretch this center outwards. So by stretching this out, it should pull the sides downwards. And if that doesn't work, I'll knock this radius up as well if it needs it, and then do a combination of pulling the sides down. It's pretty much just a guesstimate. When you're freestyling it like this, you're not copying something that already exists, so pretty much make it up as you go along. In a sense, it should be easier than copying the spoiler that I did for my coupe. I remade that one in steel, and I hope this one turns out easier because I'm choosing what I want it to look like. Alright, so using the mallet to stretch the radius of the sides down, and the opposite way do the center up, and then using the linear stretch dies to do the center and to pull the bottoms down as well. So look like a crumpled piece of dog shit, but it will start to take shape. Just run that through the wheel, then you can see it's starting to lift up each end. So it is nearly touching on both sides there, but we've got a little whoop going on here where it's up in the center. So I'm going to change the lower die on the wheel to like a pretty tight radius one of these suckers, and then just run just this and try and blend that area in a bit more. So I've just got a Cleco on each end now, and just checking against the cardboard and see how much I've got to tweak it here and there, and where I'm going to have to start tipping this edge here. So I've got it Clecoed on, and what I can notice is it needs this area here to be hit down with the mallet so I can contort with the boot a bit better. So the front edge is matching, but this is more of a straight still, so you want that to start splaying down a little bit. Be the same on this side. Yep, so it says to have a lot more stretch added into it. Just using the mallet. Of course, when you're malleting here, it's going to want to splay this area up because you're stretching down there. This area wants to get pulled in with it, so you're going to have to stretch all that area back down again. And then to the wheel, to smooth out all the lumpies on this flat section, change the lower wheel to a sharper radius and then hit this area. So again, I've got to run some more stretch through this area with the mallet because it's wanting to lift up on that edge there still. So yeah, in that triangle there, pretty much needs more stretch to pull it down because it's ramping up, not actually gradually flowing. It's just a big sweeping reverse here. So making the end caps. So I just made them out of cardboard, that's what I wanted, and I'm just tipping a little 10mm flange just as a perimeter, something to clamp the back sheet to and something to cleco to this as well. So bead roller for that, I pretty much just run it while it's like that, and then I go and trim all this off, and then I can keep tipping it further. So just trimmed up with the pull max, now back to the bead roller. So I've just got it to this point, one end's clecoed on. I'm going to trim it down to that line on the tape, and I just sent him a few pictures of it just to see what his thoughts are on it, if he wants to change the shape while we're here before we go too far into it. And I think we might end up knocking it down a little bit. It's hard to tell, it's hard to see it as a whole, but I'd like to see the back on it first, and then it's easier to make it shorter, it's harder to make it higher. Alright, so I took 20mm off the top of the spoiler in height and adjusted the sides to suit. So I'm going to get started on the back panel now. So I just made a paper template for the back panel and now just giving it some shape in the center because this spoiler concaves in a little bit. Alright, so that's the top drop down 20mm and the back panel just roughly hung on in there. So we do have a slight concave, and I've got to get the boot lid and scribe it along there. So I've got to do my return. Alright, time to scribe the boot lid flange, which will change thickness. It'll be a bit thicker on the ends, thinner in the middle to accommodate the arc, because the quarters hang out past the boot lid on this shape. So there's the scribe scratched on there, so I'm going to tip that now on the bead roller. Alright, so I ran that line with the bead roller. Now as you can see, it doesn't want to meet up anymore because there's tension here. So I need to linear stretch this edge here, and that will let that suck inwards, because at the moment it's wanting to bow outwards and it needs to go in. So I'm assuming both sides will be the same. Yep. So this needs to be linear stretched here, and that will allow the spoiler to curve inwards and meet the boot lid. But everywhere else it seems to probably get a touch. It's just the sides holding it out at the moment. So with a little bit of stretch there, it's let it sink in and touch the back side of the spoiler, but I've still yet to wrap it the whole way under, and then this has to reach this face here. So I've got a fair way to go. So a lot more linear stretching here to let it wrap right in there, because the face change of when you're going around a corner, the corner is taking a lot of the material there, and then it just needs to be stretched right here because it's just not enough. If it was dead straight, that would curve along the same plane, but as you start to wrap around a corner, you really need to stretch this face here if you want it to meet the same plane. And that goes in reverse. If you would go this way, you've got to shrink the material out of that corner there. So just something to keep in mind. Alright, so I got this side folded around. Just got to do the other side now. Just a big gap. Alrighty, so basically all mocked up now. Got this edge wrapped around, and I can't wrap it any further because that protrudes past, so it'll catch on it if it opens and shuts. So I'm going to trim this down now and just just add a bit more concave in here once it's actually on. A bit too flat for my liking. So I've rounded the top off using a combination of the bead roller with the wheel in it, the slapper, and just a T-dolly like this. So I just thought it looked a lot better rounded off instead of having the square sharp edge. Okay, so I've just got some MIG tacks just to hold this ends on there, and I'm running it through the air plenisher to get rid of these big dents here. So I'll run it through just this little air plenisher because it just has a faster hit speed than those two machines. It seems to be a lot better for like finishing stuff like this off. I've never found the electric motor to move fast enough. It's just the air, it's just so much faster that it's good for like a finishing result. So we'll see what it does. Alright, so that was a few minutes on this, and it works really well. So I'm actually pretty happy with this. Good purchase. So I just got a little bit more just on the very front edge. Might need a little bit of a stretch down. I have to sit it on the car and see if it's wanting to splay off the boot lid. But yeah, I can pretty much keep going on the top edge here. We got the round radius of that nice and perfect. Alrighty, so zap the ends on. Now after this edge here has been welded, I've got to bump all that weld up. So to do so, pretty much use flat side of that hammer. So I'm going to bring all that weld up. Now I can buzz all that excess weld off and planish it again. Right, so the ends are welded and sanded, and now I'm just going along and bumping this area up, which is the custom dolly. Just chop the end off an old dolly and get the right radius on the ends there. It's just a bit wobbly in a few spots. So I'll go through and chase all those now. So yeah, I thought something looked off about the back panel, and I started measuring down to taillight holes and shit, so I fucked up this line. This line has to be that high to match the other side, so I'm going to remake the back panel. Not that it's a hard one, it's a fucking easy panel to make, so just a little wobble here, it's got to come forward. Alright, so studs added, back panel's remade, put more shape in here, and I've left this long now so it overhangs the boot lip and sits as tight as we want it to sit, because the factory boot lid's just got a massive gap there, so I figure if we leave it tight then we can trim it down and have the gap wherever you want it to be. So ready to TIG along this edge now. There's a few spots where it's larger than what I'd like it to be, but that's what you get. So I've welded and sanded the top, and as you can see there's little lows that I've got to go pick up. So hopefully I can get a dolly up into that spoiler. If not, then that's what more can I do there? Might get the easy beat and just pull up on those a little bit, but yeah, pretty much ready to add the bottom bolts or studs from in here, and I'm hoping that I can put those on, then you clip the spoiler on by going on and then fall the front holes in. I hope. Worst case, it'll be 3 bolts visible on the bottom here, which is what I really don't want. So welded the studs in to match the front side for hidden hardware. Sweet, so I got it off the car now, it's got to bump up this area here, so hopefully I can get up in there. Now I'm not going to delve too far into this, it's been all crow-pecked and smashed around everywhere, but I'm at least going to fix up these welds that are visible and not matching to the other side, so it's a bit too ugly for me to leave, so I'll just tidy that up just so when it gets blasted and epoxied again it's all one colour, someone else doesn't think that I did this junk. Alrighty, so I got the spoiler pretty much buttoned up. I just want to add a strip underneath to cap it off because it's an open void at the moment and the gap's a little large for my liking, but you've got to keep it off the quarter somehow, so I might just infill those and then that's it. Pretty happy with that. All the hidden hardware, it comes up neat, so got the bolts there and you got some little bolts on the back side, just 3 on the back side, and you got 7 on the front side. Alright, so I got it in the air now, and I can just tidy up any of these little plugs here, these TIG patches that I've put on for the floor, so I'll just sort those out. And then I've got a few little plugs I've got to get on these brackets here, so I want to sort those out, and then should be good. Well, that's it for the resto side of it, and then I'm going to make a front lip for it while it's on the hoist. I figured it was a way better position for the car to be in. Now the front lip is a weird one because of the bottom of the guard. Doing that, it hangs down so much past the front apron, so I think the only way is to really bring it just off the radius of the arch there, and then you can decide if you want to trim that off after you have wheels on it. I normally go level with the bottom of the sills with front lips. I've got the cardboard assisted design happening. Transform it to steel now. So there's the front lip all finished up. One joint in the middle because it was obviously too long. So I just primed the backside and I'm going to put phosphate on the outside. So any areas that are going to get paint on them, I only like to put phosphate on there so the painter gets the first choice of the initial startup product. So I'm going to remake this horn bracket using the old shapes. Alright, so that's what it's meant to look like. So it goes there, and another one caps the back side of it. So I get to making that. So just tipping the first initial bead with the bead roller on some scrap just to see how it reacts. I gave the edges a shrink down, now I'm just drawing the perimeter bead, which is this area. Okay, so both those are indented in there softly. Alright, so I got that in one piece. Alright, so that's both pieces there. They join together and they go here. Hold the horn. So I've just got to weld on 2 nuts for the inside, but pretty happy with that. Got it in one piece, no welding. So the only welding will be the 2 nuts on there and then spotting it together. So I just got the nuts tigged on there now. Alright, so spot welded together. Now I'm ready to join it to the car. Just got to do 2 little patches on this battery support and remake this front little circle for the clamp to hook into. Get that sorted, and that's the last thing on the car. That's zapped on there now, so it's got to buzz the plugs down. Obviously welded from this side because there was no chance of getting a neat hole in there and getting the MIG torch in there. It's impossible. To get the little circle for the battery tray that's going to have a ring around it, I'm going to punch it through a piece of plate like this, and that way it'll give me my inner circle that I can hook through instead of just like drilling a hole and trying to weld a ring or anything silly to it. This is just an easy way. So yeah, just tap that in and it will fold itself around the plate, and then you can just trim off the excess once it does pierce through. Just bash the socket through there. Alright, so it'll pierce through, and you just piss that off, and then I'll put the socket back through and just give it a tap around and it'll tidy the lip right up. Alright, so it's pierced through and you've got your nice little recess for the battery clamp to go through. So that little piece is ready to go in. Alrighty, so I got my overlapping areas primed. Little puzzle piece in there, and it's ready to weld in. Alright, so that's all sanded up and good. Just got to replace this rusty section here and a little tab, little corner of this tab. Sweet, so I got that patch, both those patches welded in. Got the front one all sorted. This side, happy days. So I also got the little strips welded on the spoiler. So pop that up and have a gaze.